Frances Coke, the Viscountess of Purbeck, was born in August 1602 at Hatton House in London. Frances was the younger daughter of Sir Edward Coke, a judge and privy councillor, and his second wife, Lady Elizabeth Hatton. Her baptism occurred on September 2nd, 1602 at St Andrew, Holborn's Parish Church. Frances became widely known as the sister-in-law of George Villiers, the first Duke of Buckingham. But her life took a dramatic turn when she became embroiled in a significant scandal in the early 17th century English aristocracy, famously referred to as the Lady Purbeck's business. This era made her central in one of the era's most talked about controversies. The political atmosphere in England was tense and charged. Queen Elizabeth, having had a heated argument with her lover, the Earl of Essex, struck him and sharply told him to go to the devil. In response, Essex stormed out, declaring that he wouldn't have accepted such treatment from her father, let alone from a king in petticoats. This incident, though well known, is referenced here to set the stage for the period of our story. However, our focus will shift from these public dramas to the more personal aspects of life. Instead of the royal court, our tale begins in the more modest setting of the home of the Queen's Attorney General. In 1617, Frances Coke, then 15 years old, was betrothed by her father, Sir Edward Coke, to Sir John Villiers, the first Viscount Purbeck, the elder brother of George Villiers, the favoured first Duke of Buckingham of King James VI and First. This arrangement was part of Sir Edward Coke's effort to regain royal favour after being removed from his position as Lord Chief Justice and the Privy Council. While he intended to restore his position, it also meant a loss of agency for Frances in her marriage. Frances and her mother, Lady Hatton, were both against this marriage. In an attempt to avoid it, Lady Hatton secretively moved Frances out of Hatton House on July the 10th, relocating her first to the home of Lady Withypole, previously known as Frances Cornwallis. The intention was to secure a preemptive engagement for Frances with Henry de Vere, the 18th Earl of Oxford. However, Sir Edward Coke unexpectedly found Frances at a residence near Oatlands, which Sir Edmund Withypole leased from the Earl of Argyll. Upon discovering his daughter, Sir Edward took immediate action to regain control. He legally arranged for her to stay with Sir Henry Yelverton, the Attorney General, and then with Thomas Knivet, the first Baron Knivet, at Staines. There were disturbing rumours that Frances was forcibly restrained and harshly coerced into agreeing to the marriage. In September 1617, Frances was married to Viscount Purbeck at Hampton Court, with the King and Prince Charles in attendance. Witnesses reported seeing her crying during the ceremony when she and Viscount Purbeck joined hands, signalling her distress and reluctance. The marriage between Frances and Purbeck was fraught with difficulty. It was widely believed that Viscount Purbeck suffered from what would now likely be diagnosed as bipolar disorder, contributing to their separation in 1621. In October 1624, Frances gave birth to a son named Robert Wright, sparking rumours that Sir Robert Howard, the Earl of Suffolk's son, was the birth father. In response to these rumours, King James authorised an adultery trial for Frances and Howard in the Ecclesiastical Court of the High Commission in January 1625. However, Frances' first biographer suggested that it was the Duke of Buckingham, her brother-in-law, who pushed for her prosecution, driven by an unhealthy fixation with her actions and even accusing her of witchcraft. In February 1625, Buckingham convinced the Lord Chief Justice to detain Howard, who was placed in Fleet Prison, and Frances, who was put under house arrest in a London alderman's home. Howard faced public excommunication in March that year after he refused to respond to the charges, leading to a temporary suspension of the proceedings. The trial eventually resumed in November 1627, overseen by Bishop George Montan. Frances was found guilty of adultery. The trial was conducted by a panel of 20 commissioners, among them the poet John Donne, then Dean of St Paul's Cathedral. only one judge, Sir Charles Caesar, distanced himself from the judgment by excusing himself from the proceedings. Frances did not comply with her ordered penance, which involved standing barefoot on a white sheet in church, leading to another period of house arrest. She escaped by disguising herself as a page boy and fled to Paris in France, where she lived in exile with her son for several years. While in Paris, Frances converted to Roman Catholicism, a significant decision that not only provided her with spiritual solace, but also further alienated her from the Protestant English court. She spent some time in a convent, though she never took the vows as a nun. In 1640, she petitioned the House of Lords to reclaim her £10,000 marriage payment from the Villiers family, but her efforts appear to have been unsuccessful. Frances eventually returned to England during the English Civil War and passed away in May 1645 from an illness during the Second Siege of Oxford at the age of 42. She was buried in the University Church of St Mary, the Virgin. If Frances had the mental energy to reflect during the final bouts of her illness, shivering and sweating, she might have revisited her life's myriad challenges. From her youth, she was compelled to submit to the authority of her parents, in-laws, and king. Over time, Frances developed a strong will, demanding recognition of her noble status. As she matured, she stood firm, not bowing to anyone except by her own choice, yet her decisions often led to complex dilemmas. Those who admired her viewed Frances as a beautiful, brave, witty and romantic, though tragic heroine. Critics, however, saw her as stubborn, arrogant, greedy and scandalous. This contrast between her public image and her struggles adds depth to Frances's character, making her a fascinating and multi-dimensional figure for the reader. Regardless of perspective, Frances was a figure who commanded attention. Frances Coke, Viscountess of Purbeck, remains a somewhat elusive historical figure. Not being politically or literally active, few of her documents were preserved, leaving only a handful of her letters and petitions offering insight into her perspective on life and actions. Most of what we know about her comes from the reactions of others to her actions, particularly her contentious marriage and the scandalous affair that ensued, and so her life presents a significant challenge to historians and scholars. A broad spectrum of administrative and legal documents such as records from the High Commission Court, proceedings from both Houses of Parliament, acts of the Privy Council and a comprehensive collection of state papers enriches our knowledge of Frances's life. This extensive collection, which includes letters, petitions, royal orders, warrants and investigations, provide a rich context. Frances's story is like a puzzle with many missing pieces. However, the fragments we possess combine to form a vivid picture of a 17th century woman whose life story is both captivating and worthy of exploration. If you loved our video on Viscountess Purbeck, you won't want to miss this next one. Click on the screen now to explore the untold stories and hidden secrets of another fascinating figure with a story to tell. Get ready to uncover more historical gems and intriguing royal tales. Your next adventure in history starts right here.